All right, everybody. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Friday. And it is that time once again. We got another Seahawks game, and this time we are playing for keeps. The winner advances, the loser goes home for the offseason. You guys know the drill. Playoff time. Things are getting real. And we've got a fun one tomorrow night. Hosting the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers coming off a tough win in Philadelphia just a week ago, and now they've got to play a team that they lost to just 2 weeks ago. Not even 2 weeks ago at this point, actually. So we got plenty of stuff to talk about from this one. Definitely some interesting matchup stuff, but at the same time, we did just talk about this matchup 2 weeks ago, and not that much has changed. A few things have, but realistically, we know this team pretty well, and we know what these games typically look like. So let's get into it a little bit. All right, everybody, before we go any further into the video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about a wonderful app called Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat about sports in real time with other users. You can get all kinds of scores, sports news, and sports alerts with blazing fast speed. And of course, you can play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports with other people in a community. Download the Sleeper app today, and remember to use the promo code SBN, that is SBN, for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And they also have a free $20 entry right now, no deposit required, so pair those two up. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. Check out the Sleeper app and have fun with sports this year. All right, so looking at this matchup, let's focus on the things that are going to be different from the last time we played this team, because it's only been 2 weeks. Obviously, game plans change. Obviously, game flow changes. There are going to be differences just kind of built in because of the nature of how a football game works. But realistically, I think that we all know that these two teams are pretty darn familiar with each other. So let's focus mostly on the changes and go from there. So let's start with the Seattle offense against the Niners defense, because that's going to be an interesting chess match, especially with the news yesterday of Sam Darnold being at something less than 100%. So we don't know exactly what's going on, but we do know that Darnold's oblique is less than 100%, but we don't know what the actual percentage is. And an oblique can be a big deal for a quarterback. Now, it's the left side, so it's the non-throwing side. So that's a little bit interesting. That's a little bit different. That's probably a little bit more manageable, but it does introduce some wrinkles here. And I think that there's a pretty clear picture being painted by this matchup now. So you've got a 49ers team that is missing so many players in that front seven. They're missing Nick Bosa. They're missing Fred Warner, who was declared out for this game. He's not going to play. They're missing Mykel Williams, who wasn't playing great for them yet, but he was very good against the run. And they're even missing Tatum Bethune, who would be playing linebacker for them right now if he was healthy. So they are very undermanned in that front seven, and they're particularly undermanned in their ability to stop the run. Now, you go back to that game we played against them 2 weeks ago. One thing that the Niners defense did, one, excuse me, one thing that Robert Saleh did in that second half is he started putting a safety in the box at a higher percentage of the plays. So he would rotate a safety down and play single high against Seattle. And that is something that Seattle saw a lot earlier in the year, and they exploited relentlessly. They made a ton of big plays against single high. They didn't make any big plays against it on Saturday a couple weeks ago against the Niners, but they were also at that point already playing with a lead. They already felt relatively comfortable with the way their defense was playing. So there were some reasons why you wouldn't have really tried to exploit that. But this week, I feel like things are going to be a little bit different. You are going to be getting opportunities from this Niners defense to beat them over the top. You are going to get opportunities to bust big plays. because they need to stop the run. If we run the ball at will on them, I don't think there's any way they can win. If we run the ball for last time we played them, we had 180 yards. If we run the ball for 200 yards this time, there's no way we lose. And that seems like a realistic possibility given the fact that this 49ers team is just missing more guys that they would normally lean on to stop the run. That they've gotten, if anything, a little bit weaker at linebacker, that they're worn out because they had to play Philadelphia last week and now they're playing another game on the road again 6 days later. So many different things working against them. If they get run over the way they did in that game a couple weeks ago, they got no chance. Because if we do that, that means we're not turning the ball over. That means we're just controlling the game. That means we're probably getting 40 minutes of time of possession. You can forget about it. So they need to force some variance into this game. And in order to force variance, what they're going to do is they're going to put that eighth defender in the box. They're going to bring the safety up, and they're going to leave their corners on islands with a single high safety and hope things work out. And I'm sure they know that earlier this year, the Seahawks feasted on single high. They loved playing single high. JSN was destroying opposing teams on single high stuff, stacked boxes and the like. And now the Seahawks have Rashid Shaheed, that's the main reason why I think opposing defenses have shifted away from trying to stack the box against Seattle, because they added Shaheed and it just became untenable. But I think San Francisco is going to look at this game and go, we would rather allow Sam Darnold to beat us over the top with big plays than just get grinded to death on the ground. So I'm expecting extra defenders in the box. And what the Niners are hoping, number one, they're hoping that they can get turnovers that way. Even if they give up a couple of big plays, if they force Sam Darnold to throw the ball more, they're hoping that they can get some turnovers. And they're also possibly hoping now that the oblique injury makes it harder for Darnold to throw the ball down the field. If Darnold can't be hitting the balls over the top the way that he did earlier this year because of the oblique, that changes things a little bit. That opens things up for that Niners defense to not have to worry so much. And I think that given that injury report, even if they weren't already planning to do this, they're really going to do it now. So I am looking for a Niners defense to sell out to stop the run and force Darnold to make some throws to win the game. Now, one thing the Seahawks have done a very good job of this year, and they need to continue to do this in this game, is sticking with the run, even if it's not having the most success in the world, even if the opposing team is stacking the box, because you can't completely give up on the run. This team is not built to be a high volume passing attack. But I do think that at a certain point, you are going to have to see what Darnold can do. This Niners secondary is not that great. They're missing Jair Brown, who was a better cover player than Siegel, even if Siegel might be better in other areas. And you've got an advantage there that you should be able to exploit. You didn't really do it last time, but you didn't need to. There was no need to air the ball out a bunch in that game because the defense was locked in so much. So that is the main thing that I'm looking at right now when I think about this Seattle offense. Yes, we're going to run the ball. I'm sure we're going to run the ball well. Maybe you can knock San Francisco out of the stacked boxes early, but I'm expecting to see stacked boxes early, and I'm expecting to see some stuff from Robert Saleh that you typically don't see from him because he is undermanned and because he needs to mix it up and try to inject variance. So that's the main thing that I'm thinking about right now on that side of the ball. I like our chances, though. That Niners defense is tired. They're beat up. They just played against Philly, and they were able to win that game, but still traveling to Philly, coming back to San Francisco, going to Seattle. It's not easy. That team is worn out. They played a lot of football recently. That is a team that could just kind of get knocked over if you lean on them enough. So definitely be willing to grind it out a little bit ugly. And then maybe by the time you get to the fourth quarter, they got no legs left and you can just kind of shove them down the field for late scores if you need them to put the game away. All right. So that is our offense versus their defense. I think you're going to get something different from them this time. I think they're going to sell out against the run. So with the Darnold injury, there is a possibility. Like, it's not impossible to imagine that it turns into a little bit of a slugfest, because if we can't run the ball the way that we're used to running it over the last month, and if San Francisco is forcing us to beat us with the pass that maybe we don't have, then you need a great effort from your defense. So the thing that has changed from last time here is pretty simple. They're going to have Trent Williams, although quite frankly, Trent Williams does not look the same. He played against Philly last week, did not play very well, and arguably only looked a little bit better than his replacement against Seattle the previous week. I think his name is Pleasance or something like that. So I don't know if he's himself right now. And they might get Ricky Pearsall back. He's questionable. That would obviously be an addition of speed that they really did not have in that game a couple weeks ago. But, and this is the big one, they got no George Kittle. George Kittle is out. George Kittle is going to be out for a long time. He might not play next year. He might not play ever again. Who knows? 32-year-old Achilles tear. It's brutal. Excuse me. So I look at this matchup with our defense against their offense, and I do see a lot of the same stuff that I saw 2 weeks ago. The difference is, and the thing that the Niners are probably going to be hoping for this time, is that Ricky Pearsall gives them some ability to take the top off the defense. They really weren't able to get anything going over the top against Seattle 2 weeks ago, and they had to work so hard to move the ball that they weren't able to actually finish any drives. Pearsall gives them a big play guy, and Pearsall did bust some big plays in that week 1 game against Seattle months and months ago. Now, I'm not really thinking too hard about that game at this point because it was so long ago, but Pearsall did give them something in that game that they did not have in week 18. So, wrinkle, but no George Kittle looms very large. He is, by a pretty good margin on Pro Football Focus, the highest ranked tight end in football. Oh, man. Sorry, guys. Got a little bit of a frog in there. He is incredible both as a pass catcher and as a blocker. There's no replacing that guy. Now, maybe he wasn't 100% anyway. Maybe he wasn't really himself. He obviously only made the 1 catch against Philadelphia last week. So maybe he's not the George Kittle that we've all come to know. But over the course of this season, a season where, by the way, he's been hurt all year long, he's been playing through injuries since week 1, really. He's still been incredible. So you definitely lose something there. Now, at the end of the day, I think that the underlying belief that I have about this matchup still persists. This is why Mike McDonald is here, to play the 49ers. He's here for a lot of things. But I'm sure that when the Seahawks made the decision to move off of Pete Carroll a couple years ago, they were looking at games against the 49ers, because in the last couple years of Pete Carroll, couldn't do nothing against the 49ers. They owned us. It wasn't even close. Carroll's defense was coming and going against that Shanahan offense. And remember, early in Shanahan's tenure in San Francisco, that was one of the things Carroll was doing pretty well. He actually had good results against that 49ers offense for the most part. So that got away from him. And then you looked at what McDonald was doing in Baltimore, and you looked at what he did against the 49ers in 2023 when they played the Ravens. I got to believe that was a big part of the reason why you decided to make that hire. You were like, do for us what you did for the Ravens against the Niners. This is a good matchup for McDonald. You take a look at the history between Shanahan and McDonald. McDonald usually comes out on top, even when he loses. Like earlier this year, week 1, yeah, we lost, but the Seahawks defense did good in that game, played really well enough to win, and the game ultimately came down to the offense much more than the defense. But 2 weeks ago, McDonald completely owned Shanahan. Last year in San Francisco, he owned Shanahan. In Baltimore, 2023, owned Shanahan. The only time Shanahan ever really got the better of McDonald was last year in, I think it was week 6. And think about the players that were playing on that Seattle defense. You had, what, Jerome Baker, you had Tyrell Dodson, you had Rayshon Jenkins, no Uchenna Nwosu, no DeMarcus Lawrence, no Ernest Jones, no Nicky Manwari, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. It was not a defense that McDonald wanted. It was the defense that he had to have at that point in time. So, bottom line is, whatever the Niners are able to bring, if Pearsall adds a little dimension to that offense, then good for them. If they're able to have a little bit more success in certain areas, like converting on fourth downs, then so be it. This is still a matchup that I think the Seahawks can kind of dominate at. This is still a circumstance that I think the Seahawks should be able to have control over. So I'm looking at that part of it, and then I'm looking at the Niners run game, which is really running out of gas right now. And this is the kind of run game that I think Seattle really likes to play. It is an outside zone run game. They like to get the ball to the outside the numbers. They don't like to run the ball inside all that much. They rely on speed. They rely on zone blocking on the outside. This is the kind of run game that I think this Seahawks team is very good against. The run games that intimidate me are the ones based on power, like what the Rams have, because they're just about having a bunch of really big guys in the middle and just trying to run you over. This run defense is built to stop a run game like the 49ers. So you take a look at that, and then you consider the fact that that Niners run game seems like it's running out of gas anyway, with McCaffrey clearly starting to wear down after a long, long season full of touches, just getting the ball over and over and over again, and probably having very little left in the tank. I don't think this is a Niners run game that is going to be able to do much more than maybe keep the pace, but this can easily turn into a one-dimensional game. And if it turns one-dimensional, you got to like our chances to force a bunch of turnovers and ultimately win, because this this defense has gotten a week off. They've gotten a week to rest. They've gotten a week to prepare. And one thing about this Seahawks defense over the last, I'd say, month and a half, their pass rush hasn't been all that great. Their pass rush has been pretty limited. So the week off, and now you're playing this Niners team that doesn't have the greatest offensive line in the world outside of Trent Williams, you got to believe that there's going to be some opportunities for them to get some big pressure. So I like the matchup. I like pretty much everything about it. I think not having Kittle is big on both ends for them in the pass game and the run game. And if Pearsall plays, I do think he adds something to that offense, but I don't think that it's any kind of like a game breaker. And this Seahawks team is very good at not getting beat over the top. So at the end of the day, I invite that challenge. So one other little note about this game, both teams have elite special teams units. The Niners have been the second best special teams unit in the league by EPA. And if you take out week one, they're actually first. That week one game really did them in because they had such a bad special teams in that game. So don't expect the Niners or the Seahawks to give the game away on special teams. These are two elite units that should get it done on that side. So you're going to have to look for your game-breaking advantage elsewhere. So you just got to execute on offense. You got to execute on defense. And I don't think there's any reason why this Seahawks team should not be winning this game sometime around 8 p.m. tomorrow night. So I'm going to say Seahawks 24, 49ers 10. I think the defense will be not quite as good as they were 2 weeks ago, because that game was just, it was too good, right? You can't replicate a game that good. It's just not realistic. But I think it's going to be close, and I think the offense is going to control the game. They're not going to dominate the game. They're going to control it, however, and that should be more than enough to get the win. All right. So probably going to have another video later today. Um, Obviously, one thing that came out yesterday, I didn't feel like making a video about it, was that Elijah Arroyo and Chaz Surratt were both ruled out. And clearly that has less to do with them physically being capable of playing and more to do with us just not really having a place for them on the team right now. So I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not really worried about it. It makes sense. I like having Arroyo around just because he's an athletic tight end, but at the same time, he doesn't really fit in with what this team is doing right now. All right, so I think that's really about all we can say. I'm feeling good. I'm ready to see what the team has for us, and I'm hoping that in less than 36 hours, I'm on here making a video about a trip to the NFC title game. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Go Hawks. If you're going to the game, do your thing. and let's get this win. Let's get the monkey off our back, and let's go on a Super Bowl run. All right. See you guys later.